Hey folks, Positive Paul, and it's Monday, August 10th, 2020. I want to thank everybody for joining me today and keeping me motivated. Well, as I stated in a recent video, I'm about to destroy single-handedly what is known as the UFO community. I am about to destroy single-handedly, piece by piece, what is known as this disinfo campaign as it relates to the aliens that are soon going to be here. We're still waiting, folks. But more importantly, I am going to single-handedly destroy the Montauk Project myth. And as it relates to me. Now, this is going to get piecemeal because there's no point, and I don't think I could do this anyways, as far as making, an hour-long video that is difficult to sit through. And we do know, the one thing we know, folks, if you are a real target, not a phony TI of the military-industrial satanic complex, it is death by 1,000 cuts. Back in the day, they take you out, one fell swoop. Now it's all about making the last remaining human beings squirm. So I want to start off in this quick all over the map video and set the stage for the false alien narrative. And in front of me is what is called A Covenant with Death, written by Bill Cooper many, many years ago. Now, while I have seen some people find footage that would indicate Bill Cooper would be a Canaanite due to the fact some weird anomalies, we must remember, folks, these people also give us bits and pieces of the puzzle. Now, I think we can all agree, no matter what the case was with Bill Cooper, this man essentially was, he was the Lone Ranger as far as trying to, really trying to get the word out as far as it relates to what's going on behind the scenes. Now, again, I stated Lyndon LaRoche. He is the one person I owe a debt of gratitude to. But the one thing Lyndon would never touch is the whole alien conundrum. And he knew damn well that these Satanists, with their hocus pocus, their black magic, certainly could pull off a couple Hollywood stunts here and there to make the good folk out there across the globe believe in these little shiny objects floating around, zipping around up in the sky. So I want to start off, and we're right down here below the red mark, and I'm going to just real quick. Bill Cooper states, I have discovered that Whitley Strieber is a CIA asset, as is Bud Hopkins. Don't know who Bud Hopkins is, but we know who Whitley Strieber is, folks. In this covenant with death, a lot of the people that Bill Cooper points out would be an all-star cast on Coast to Coast. And I made it a point to leave George Norrie alone. Also Art Bell. And there's a reason for that, and maybe someday I'll go over it, but I've chose to just leave those two alone. But again, if you look at all these names in this covenant with death, which is quite long, folks, Bill Cooper does point out all these jokers that are on Coast to Coast. So let's continue. I have discovered that Whitley Strieber is a CIA asset, as is Bud Hopkins. Strieber's book, Majestic, and I don't want to explain this, folks. If some of you are, confused with some of the names and the terms, I'm sorry. I can't go over them. So Strieber's book, Majestic, has convicted him with those of us in the know that it is the true story of the Roswell crash taken from the confiscated diaries of James Forrestal. Now, if you remember, folks, a couple of days ago in one of my Reptoid rants, with the Joker, with the Hillary Clinton license plates next door. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the roommate, he drives around with an anonymous mask attached to his passenger seat. And when they moved in is when my hacking problem started. So you see how easy you can get lost and go off track? But Strieber's book, Majestic, was taken and essentially from the confiscated diaries of James Forrestal. Now, can we prove this? No, we can't, folks. But when I tell you my grandfather, who was murdered by these filthy, creepy chameleon Canaanites, knew James Forrestal, and I've already proven it way back when, I have a personal letter from Forrestal sent to my grandfather's church out in Long Island, thanking him for his service. It wasn't just some form letter. He gave him a letter that went all the way to Long Island. So Bill writes, that is assuming that the documents I saw in the Navy were not a hoax. Well, certainly we know that documents can be forged. Hey, can they create fake police files and show the authorities in another country that, hey, look, we've got this guy, Paul Linder. We need you to keep an eye on him because he's under investigation. Can the FBI make fake files? Can the CIA make fake files? Well, yes, folks. Don't kid yourself. We know this. So, this is, I tell you, this is how I'm going to piece by piece dismantle this UFO community. So let's just say, for instance, that this is true. That James Forrestal, who was part of the Majestic 12, was a pain in the ass to the other 11, kept complaining. They didn't want to hear about it. And so what ends up happening is they stalk him, they harass him, they try to destroy him. Nothing was working. And then what do? Illegally commit him to a hospital in Bethesda. And when his brother was going to come and take him out the next day because he warned them, unfortunately, he just should have went there and took him and took off. He said, look, I am showing up tomorrow and I am taking my brother out of here. And what happened? Forrestal got tossed out of the window and bye-bye, he went. And the truth went with him. So let's real quick, I just want to start off with that. And this is going to be very complicated, folks, to do this. But we need to start from the beginning as it relates to what occurred directly after World War II, as it relates to this UFO phenomenon and the aliens. So let's real quick, I just want to throw that out there, and I want to go over one more thing. And okay. Now, here's the big dimensions of Disclosure Conference last summer. And it was an all-star cast of nothing but men. And I see two females at the bottom. We clearly know one of them's Laura Eisenhower. I don't know who she is. I think that's Wilcox's wife. Could be wrong. But what does Mr. Gilliland always talk about? Oh, I wish there was the council grandmothers, the divine feminine. Same with her, Mother Gaia, Sophia. Now, we know that Gloria Steinem would be going nuts right now if she saw this picture. Now, these men claim they support women, but I see no women in this picture as it relates to the dimensions of disclosure, folks. I just want to show you that these Draco hybrid hypocrites are a bunch of backstabbers. And that's right, Miss Steinem and Jane Fonda would be throwing up right now looking at this. So I want you to notice, we know about Mr. Bolton. And what they do, folks, we know how we get sidetracked. They come up with these big stories, and Bolton all of a sudden was lambasting Trump. Trump was lambasting Bolton. But here they all are over in Israel with old Bibi. And Bibi's shaking Bolton's hand. But what in the heck? It looks like Bolton is putting his hand in a catcher's mitt. What is going on there, folks? Now look at the Huckabee with the mask. Remember when I showed you with Mnuchin? I don't know what that anomaly is, but the faces, they have a red hue or they get like a mask, folks. It's just nuts. But I just wanted to show that because I just saw this the other day. It jumped out at me again. So let's continue. Now, I would recommend that you good folk maybe take a gander on BitChute and go to the Crow House. This older gentleman out in Australia has some interesting information to share. Now, his latest video, The New Normal, is complete isolation and total dehumanization if you allow it. And it's pretty amazing. Okay, there's the anonymous mask that the Joker next door drives around with the thing taped to his passenger seat. But I think this gentleman's onto something because watch, I didn't come up with this. I'm not smart enough. But this is the Captain America movie from 2011. And in this scene where he's in Times Square, look what happens. You've got the Corona bottle billboard, you've got the virus little thingamajigger, and then you got a mask. Now, folks, I know this predictive programming is real, and I know that, some people really, really focus on it. And with me, I try to stay away from it. Even though I know there's something to it. And here's, I'll throw this out here. There has to be an agreement with Satan and the Elohim as far as, look, you know what? You go ahead. You have your fun, boy. But when you take things too far and stretch the truth, we're gonna maybe cause an earthquake. We're gonna maybe cause a tsunami. We're maybe gonna cause a blackout. We're maybe going to cause a famine. We're maybe going to cause a pandemic. Now, Is that the case? Who knows? Who knows? But again, predictive programming. But please, folks, here's what I want to tell you. At this stage of the game, we cannot get bogged down with trying to analyze stuff that has no meaning. Now, I wish everybody would just focus on Bible studies, the ones that really, I'm not a good teacher, folks. When I do these Bible studies, it's very difficult for me. A lot of what I think I know was revealed to me through the Holy Spirit. And in 2016 and 17, I did some extensive studying with my, one older Bible and a Tanakh. But I just think it's how we spend our time now, folks, as far as it relates to, even these so-called TIs that still, want to focus on the gangstalking and the targeting. Again, yes, I don't want you not to if you feel you're in danger. But again, all right, some of us that have been around 4 or 5 years, goes back longer, you would have had to have grown in this process and moved beyond that, okay? Now, I always got to make the statement, you know me by now, people, that I don't hold back. Man, once I start getting riled up, I can definitely turn people off. I get that. But I can't, mealy-mouth my way through this. So let's just take a quick look again. Here is my video that just drove them crazy. If Frank Sinatra did it his way, so can I. Oh, how convenient. 3:33 p.m. Now, this might have been one of the reasons they pulled it, but I think there's another one. But look, folks, this news broadcaster certainly had some problems that day. And so what they did is they removed the Fox News video from their channel. They removed my video from my channel. And what do? The very next day, they put a mask on this joker and send him back out there. And look what happens. Look what happens. Now, these people don't get it. Why do they keep doing this, folks? Because they think the rest of the American public are just a bunch of dumbed down, brainwashed, mind control zombies, which we know almost all of them are now. Or here's a good question, folks. Can a real human be mind controlled? Well, yes, if you take them from birth and you put them through satanic ritual abuse, you put them through trauma-based mind control, you rape, torture, electrocute, and who knows what else these jokers do. I'll give you a little hint. One of my surfacing memories concerns dogs, in particular German Shepherds. I've had a problem with German Shepherds early on in my life. I've got scars to prove it, actually. But what I do remember is distinctly having these dogs with other kids in our face, barking, growling, and causing mayhem. What I do know is this is Concentration Camp 101. That I didn't see this in a recall dream, but I just know this is the case, folks, because they got to traumatize these children. When you are being taught something and you're not paying attention, they will use somebody as an example. It won't be a bloodliner. They'll get a non-bloodliner, and they will throw this kid into a pen of a pack of wild dogs and let these dogs rip them apart. And that's just one way you can traumatize a little kid. right? We all know how this works if you understand MK Ultra. Now, they put the Joker back up. Why would they do that? They think because they put a mask on his face that it's going to get any better? No, folks, but look at this. You see how they get the separation and his hand's cut off? You see where his hand here and his wackadoodle eyeball? Why does that happen? Why does that happen? Do you see that? Why does that happen? Why does that happen? Now, look, the predictive programming, all that good stuff. The Cuomo character, the crackpot, the governor of New York. Isn't it funny how they mandate every New Yorker to stay home starting on March 22nd? Yes, folks, I never claimed to be a prophet, never claimed to be a watchman. But I've shared 4 recall dreams in particular over the past 4 years. I don't do this often. First one was back in 2016 concerning the thousands and thousands of people in the fenced off pens in the neighborhoods scattered across America. Second was the tsunami as it relates to me in Mexico. Third would have been the Russians coming in, picking me up in anti-gravity crafts. And the recent one, which was at the very, very end, where I'm with a very small group of children and women, and the so-called Nordic whites come in. 2 of them. I'm 6 foot. The female had to lead. She had to have been around 7 foot because I was looking up at her. The male stayed behind her. They arrived in a helicopter, but they looked around where we were located at, and they took a look at me, and they turned and left. Now, what's interesting is we know the Russians are part of this end time scenario. But if you don't think China is not in on this, why would the Marine Corps be teaching their recon, their best guys, about Mao Zedong on guerrilla warfare? So what I'm going to do is, as I try to further go down this road, exposing the flaws of the whole UFO community, the MUFON types, which Bill Cooper, if you look at that Covenant of Death and you read what he says about MUFON, oh my God. He don't like them, folks. He says they're a bunch of phonies too. But as it relates to Montauk Project, I'm going to prove to you that Al Billick, Preston Nichols, and Duncan Cameron told you a bunch of tall tales. Now, everybody was wondering what happened to Al Billick. I remember I did a video last November. I've done a bunch of them, but last November. And I pointed out how certain people were concerned about Mr. Billick being in a CIA-owned some type of hospital facility or wherever, that no one was able to see him. And somehow Kanadachi, who was, he's supposed to be dead, folks. All right. Kanadachi, had reported that he got an email from Rich Jibros stating that Al passed away on October 10th, 2011 in Guadalajara, Mexico, folks. Well, here's a recall dream. The day before March 22nd, before the whole coronavirus lockdown thing began, folks. And again, I go into a house. I'm looking for someone. Not quite sure where this house was, but it seemed to be under construction. There was 3 sections of scaffold set up on one side of the house. Then there was a big, one of those big metal shipping containers. A lot of contractors use those to store their tools in on job sites. I entered into the house. I walked in. There was someone sitting in one of the back rooms. I asked, whoever I was looking for. I don't remember. I didn't say a name. And he said that he's here. I went into another room and the person was sleeping. I got him up and I said, "We need to go. You come outside with me right now." And as I was walking out, a female pulled up in a truck. She was on a phone. She walked into the house past me. Not much was said. The other person comes out and we walk around this storage container, and there were one person was by the scaffold on the ground, and he was essentially, it looked like he wasn't going to pay attention. We were calling out to him, "Let's go, it's time to go." And there were 2 people up on the scaffold. And the third one on the ground started to climb up on the scaffold. And I kept shouting. I said, "If you don't come down, we're going to bring you down." And me and the other person went up to the scaffold and started shaking the scaffold. And the person trying to climb up fell, hit the ground hard. The sound was like so clear cut when he hit the ground. He reached up his hand towards us as if maybe, help me, or who knows. He was a done deal. We keep shaking the scaffold, but then we look up and it was either me or the other person, and I remember hearing, "It's a drone." And we back up, and I go, and I say, "It's Al, it hit him." Next thing you know, the other 2 people fall off the scaffold that was after we started shaking, it was coming apart. And the one person that fell got hung up on part of the scaffold as if he was wearing a jacket, and it got snagged. And the next thing you know, he turns and looked like Al Bielek to me. But what happened next was, with the force of just an amazing force, propelled that person off the scaffold, and he smashed into the house. And I figured an explosion was going to happen, and we ran around and hid ourselves behind the storage container, and that was it. So, that's just a dream. Probably means nothing. But what I will tell you is, Al Bielek wasn't who he says he was. I got a strange feeling he might have been related to one of those Nazi paperclip scientists.